Welcome to Campus Outcomes, where higher ed leaders share real stories about driving enrollment, engagement, and student success. I'm your host, Teri Markle, and today I'm sitting down with Heather Chakiris from Cal State Fullerton. Heather has spent more than 30 years shaping the student experience with impact at some of the largest institutions in the country: Penn State, UCLA Extension, and Excelsior University, building programs that transform the student experience. Welcome, Heather. It's so great to have you here today.
Thanks, Teri. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So 30 plus years from Penn State to UCLA to Cal State Fullerton. That is a career with a lot of chapters. When you look back at all of it, what's the thread that connects your experience with all of them?
Oh, great question. I believe it's probably passion for the underdog is what I would say. So, as a first generation student, um, really had to fight for my undergraduate college education, had to pay for it myself. I was working multiple jobs and going to school full time, and really had to sacrifice. There were semesters where I could only afford one textbook, for example. And so I believe that that really is the push for me in across all of the institutions, all of the positions that I've held is really wanting to see students succeed who may have um, a lot of odds against them. Either they're adult learners who are juggling a million different things, or maybe it's a student that's living and learning with a chronic illness. Um, I've worked with students that were in cancer treatment and just continuing to focus on their education, and students that are working full time, studying full time, and just exhausted, and just wanting to ensure that the rigor of their experience stays in the classroom and not on the administrative side of the house. And so I really think that that is what has driven me, is just a passion to see these folks succeed and making it as seamless as possible on the administrative and the student support side, and as compassionate and understanding as possible.
I really feel your personal connection to that. I love your passion for the underdog. And Cal State Fullerton student population is a specific one. You mentioned it has a heavy commuter base, many first generation students, and people that carry a lot outside of the classroom. How
hmm
does that context change how you think about your role?
I don't know whether it changes it or if it really kind of amplifies the drive. Um, so I've been really fortunate to work both online and on campus with either adult learners or traditional aged learners who are carrying adult responsibilities. So whether that's an active duty military, a military veteran, a teenage mom, a teenage dad, and then a more traditional adult learner. I used to say, when I would hear these students referred to as non-traditional learners, that they were actually the traditional learners, at least what I was seeing trend wise in my institutions. And I really started to approach them that way, that they were the norm and not kind of an outlier. But anyway, I really do believe that. Um, that Cal State Fullerton is such a wonderful university. First and foremost, it really is an institution that every day um, sort of walks its talk around its mission, which really resonated with me when I first learned about this opportunity to come in and work on the online business program here. And then I'm also very fortunate to have Dr. Jenny Jung, who founded the program about gosh, 14 years ago now, 13, 14 years ago, who continues to be extremely passionate about the quality of the program and the quality of the service and the success of the students. And so really working in that environment makes it much easier to do what I do. Um, I've certainly worked in, fortunately, not frequently, very rarely, but when you're working in an environment that is not conducive to that and who that possibly maybe sees students more as numbers than as actual human beings who are making an investment in trying to better their lives through education. Um, so I think that that makes it difficult, but certainly working here makes it very easy for me to implement that drive and to enjoy some of the successes of that and watching our students thrive and overcome their obstacles. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that your approach is to have the rigor stay in the classroom and not on the administrative side. And you came into this role at Cal State Fullerton and really mapped the entire student journey from application to graduation, which sounds like no small task. Where did you begin when you started thinking about that journey?
Um, where did I begin? Great. Where did I begin? I think so. Mapping is something that I've done since my time at Penn State. I love to map. I love a map. I'm kind of geeky that way. Here's the really great thing about mapping is you don't need money to do it. You just need time. So you don't have to bring in a consultant. You don't need a special software as long as you've got paper and a pen, maybe a couple of highlighters. You can do it. There's really no reason to say that you can't do it. It's not that you can't afford it. All you need to do is invest some time. So that's one of the things that drew me to mapping is everybody can do it. It doesn't, nobody's really marginalized in that based on what their budget, what their budget situation is. So I've been a part of mapping projects where the map has literally taken up an entire wall of just, 11 by 17, 11 by 17, all taped together and just put up on a wall. And you just kind of walk in and say, oh, we've got to make this simpler. This is already overwhelming for us. Imagine how overwhelming it is for the student on the other end. And then I have worked on mapping projects that have been, a piece of paper, and we were able to knock it out. And the experience here at Cal State Fullerton was relatively easy in that I have a really great working collaboration with the College of Business strategic marketing team. And they have been a tremendous help in sitting down, being willing to sit down and partner on the beginning of the funnel and getting that mapped out so that we could determine on the recruitment side. I should give some context here. So my role is really recruitment through graduation. So it's the whole life cycle of the student. And so working with them on that map to map out those communication points, those touch points, and then through the admission process, and then through the current student process, and then through graduation. So really I just sit down and I start at the beginning with, I draw swim lanes, and I'm a color coder. I'm a visual learner and processor of information. So it's a very colorful map when I do it. But just sitting down from RFI, from phone call, from organic email that comes in. Somebody heard about us and is sending an email, and really identified what are all of our leads, how are people coming in here, and understanding that, and then taking it, okay, and here's their first point of contact with us, and then what did they do after that? What are we doing after that? And so where are the gaps in there? So it was a real pleasure to do it here. because of the willing participants at the table with me.
I love that you shared the mapping process doesn't take money, it just takes time. That's a rare thing to say these days.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So there's really no excuse, um, to not spend the time to do it, really. And the other thing that's really great about mapping is, depending on the institution, you may not have control over every part of the student experience, which is understandable. So map what you have control over. So you don't have to have this big, huge mapping project. And I do, I'm not sure if you've had this experience, but I've certainly had an experience where sometimes people will come from a place of no. And so the reason that they don't want to do something like this is, well, we can't control what that office does, and we can't control what that office does. Well, map what you control, map your part of it, and figure out where your gaps are, and make the part that you do control stronger. Um, because I guarantee that that will have impact on it. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. There is a gray area in between. There is somewhere in between where you can start, and that's what I would encourage folks to do.
Yeah, such great advice to map what you can control. And
Hmm.
I imagine there are opportunities for individuals to, even if they're not in control of other offices, to work together. And maybe the mapping process is an opportunity or an invitation to start that conversation.
It's a
One
great opportunity for collaboration and partnership. And just working through, in my experience, and not here at Cal State Fullerton, but there would inevitably be an office that was maybe a little bit hesitant to map, and I think in my experience, what it came down to in really trying to get to the fundamental issue of what their concerns were, was they were sort of afraid of getting in trouble because they weren't doing something that they should have been doing. And that's not the goal of it. The goal of the mapping is not a gotcha. It's not a gotcha moment, at least not when I'm doing it. It's an opportunity, sort of a blameless opportunity to just say, this is what it is currently, and let's figure out where the gaps are. Let's figure out what we're doing well and capitalize on that. And then let's figure out where maybe there are some gaps in the process that we're not conscious of, and get those filled in. That's just been my experience.
Yeah, speaking of gaps, you've talked about hunting for, I think you call them no moments, where the points where students might quietly disengage or fall away. Can you give me an example of finding one of those and what you did with it?
Sure, I love a no. The no's are that's where the magic happens. That's where the magic happens. So an experience that I've had is really, so I should say, here's what I mean by a no moment. So what I learned through all these years of doing various mapping projects is that, um, institutions are very, very good at mapping the yes moments. So you send this communication or you do this outreach, and did the student respond? Yes. And then you do this. Did the student respond and do what they were supposed to do? Yes. That's easy. The yeses are easy. Where the magic happens is in the no's. And so often the journey stops at the no. And that's why I say the no's are where the magic happens. So of course, when a student doesn't take an action, you don't want to um, spam them or frequently, over communicate to them, but you also don't want to forget them. And so one of the things that I realized was when I walked into the position that I have here at Cal State Fullerton, is that all of the folks that preceded me did a really nice job of taking care of prospects, taking care of applicants, taking care of students. But I did notice that, for example, um, when we would host info sessions, if someone registered for an info session and didn't attend, they didn't send them follow-up information. They only sent the follow-up information for the folks who were there. Well, there are a lot of reasons why somebody is going to register for an info session and not come. They got tied up at work. They were sick. They whatever. They blanked on it, especially if they're an adult, a very busy adult working full time, balancing family. It's going to be easy to just kind of flake on it, for lack of a better word. We all do it. I do it. So everybody's human. So I'm like, why aren't we reaching out to these people? And so when we do our info sessions now, everybody who registered for that info session gets the follow-up outreach. And so again, this is where marketing comes in. We have it set up so that if you do attend, you get a message. If you don't attend, you get a message. But then I also follow up with them personally myself, all of them after the info session, to make sure that they have access to what we shared in the session, links to schedule appointments with us. And that has had a great, we track whether folks are who register are attending. And then we also can see if somebody registered but didn't attend but then applied. And so, we look at all of that, and we do see a positive result there. So that's the first one that came to my mind. And then, the other ones are to me, they're kind of self-explanatory, but if they haven't accepted their admission, are you doing outreach to them at that point? If there are specific things they have to do, like there are with our program, after they accept admission, there are a couple of other things that they need to do before we'll send them their schedules for the upcoming semester, and making sure that we're out, doing outreach to them. And one of the things we weren't doing when I got here was texting. So what I should say by that is there is the capacity to text through this current student information system, but it's not a two-way conversation. And so I found that through another software that we use at the institution, I was able to do outreach through text and back and forth. Excuse me. That allowed for back and forth real-time conversation with students, applicants, where I could answer their questions that otherwise they may have just gone silent and not matriculated into the program. But I can either relieve some fears that they have or clarify a misconception that they had that was going to cause them not to pursue actually matriculating into the program. And that has been, we have seen tremendous success when we moved to that and moved kind of away from relying on email, and moved into more of the real-time back and forth communication with students. I will not cross the line of FERPA in a text message if a student is asking me questions that are, because then when they have my phone number, they're going to continue to text me once they're in the program, which is great. I really enjoy that. Actually, I'd rather do that than back and forth on email, frankly. But excuse me, then if the questions that they do ask me once they're in a student cross that line, then I just, let them know, hey, I responded to your student email account. Go ahead and check there. So it's very disciplined. And if they opt out, we track that as well, so that we're not communicating with anybody who has opted out of that text outreach.
Speaking of success and positive outcomes, you've shared some pretty remarkable numbers, and I'll let you share those numbers. But I'm curious what your reaction was when you saw the numbers.
If I'm being honest, it was, I knew it. I knew it. If we could just get this done, I knew. I did not expect the success that we have had, but I knew it was going to work. That was my gut. and I knew it, everything about what I know about people and student decision making and things like that. Um, but so we just to talk about what those numbers are. So I've been with the program about 2 years. Last fall was a record-setting incoming cohort for us, and in the 13 or 14 years that the program has been um, in place, and so that was really exciting. Spring, we admit twice a year. Spring admit was also record-breaking in terms of spring year over year, and now this incoming fall, our app our applications are up more than 80%. And we have we have an increase of matriculated students by about 35-ish. And that's something that I'm watching on, really on a day by day basis. It changes. But that's where we are right now. And so we're really seeing the kind of the positive results of the fruits of our labors. It's very busy, really busy, because with all of those applicants mean that I need to look at all of these applications once the Office of Admissions sends them over to me, and then follow up with them. It's really busy, but it's a good busy. I certainly am not going to complain about it at all, but we've been very, very fortunate in that for sure.
Well, congratulations. It's a
Thank you.
challenge, and it sounds like your approach is really proving to be successful. And you mentioned that earlier that students are navigating, many of your students are navigating more than just the academics. There could be mental health concerns, financial pressures, and just overall life complexity. And I'm curious how that shows up in your work in terms of building a program that actually holds space for those competing pressures.
Yeah, well, again, very, really, really fortunate here at Cal State Fullerton that the online students can access both online and if they're local in person support resources at the university. So they can take advantage of the Basic Needs Services Office, and we let them know that that exists. We are, proactive in letting them know that they can do that. They can access certain aspects of the counseling center here on campus. There are some free online resources that the counseling center has that they can offer. Um, we're actually in the process of building a support, um, like a portal sort of for students that where they can access information about domestic violence and housing, food insecurity, things like that, where they can get that information either locally, regionally, statewide, nationwide, um, so that they have access to that. We don't shy away from that because I mean the numbers of students of all ages who are studying with at least one diagnosed mental health issue are staggering. Um, and that doesn't include the folks that are undiagnosed. And I see it, I teach here as well on campus, and I certainly see that in my classroom. And so being skilled in how to handle that in a way that is productive and does not shame the other person and reinforces that you are a safe person for them to talk to, maintaining lines, of course, maintaining boundaries, all, at in every single conversation, but not making them feel ashamed of the situation that they're experiencing and just showing compassion and empathy, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, those wraparound services are really critical, I think, to student not only success, but their ability to just manage and continue and finish and have successful outcomes in the program. I
Yeah,
know
I mean,
you.
students are human beings, you know. They're humans, and with life comes challenges. And so I do think that institutions, to a degree, have a responsibility to support students in a, reasonably support students and meet students where they are.
Great. Well, Heather, you have been a published author, a UPCEA award winner, and you've chaired national councils and shared your experience of building programs that didn't exist in the institutions before you got there. With all of that behind you and what you know now, what's one thing that you can share, one lesson that you wish you'd known at the beginning?
Oh gosh, what is one lesson that I would share? The people component of the work is critical. And so, what I mean by that is not only the students, but the team members, the collaborators that you need to work with, especially when building something from the ground up, and which I've done in several institutions. Um, the partnerships that you have with human resources and finance office and got the upper level management as well. So it's the people aspect of this is critical. And uh, I wish that I had that clear understanding when I was a young professional, um, that I have now. As everyone does as they age, I have so much more wisdom now, professionally. Why didn't I have this when I was 23? Um, but fortunately, I had really wonderful mentors and leaned into trainings on negotiation skills and of how to manage and kind of surf difficult situations, which were so beneficial to my development as a leader, and really I think led to the opportunities that I have had throughout my career, moving up into the executive leadership realm. But the you cannot discount the importance of the people aspect and relationship building. One of the things that I teach my students on campus is something that I learned many years ago, which is about different thinking hats that you have around the table. And I would tell them when I was putting a project together to launch something that was brand new, I always made sure I had one person around the table um, that came from a place of no, because I knew that if I could get that person on board, that person was going to start talking to people, and there was going to be kind of a grassroots, kind of back channel conversations where that person would say, I thought she was crazy, or there was no way I thought this was ever going to work, and I'm in now. Like this is going to work, and I feel okay about it. And just having them at the table to talk about what their concerns are, um, uh, what is really, again, at that foundational level of, is it just they're afraid of change, or are they afraid of job stability or job security, or, what exactly is it that is driving them to come from a place of no? But having, somebody who is just a very kind of a black and white thinker and a dreamer and the finance person, and having like those hats, what I call the thinking hats, around the table when you're brainstorming something new, so that your decision making is much stronger. And because they may ask questions that you hadn't thought of because you're gung-ho about this, and they may call to your attention a concern that is super valid that you haven't considered before. So I think that is what I would land on, is that is the people. I know it's a long answer to a short question, but it's, for on many, many, many different levels, the people component is critical.
Such great advice. Include the person who comes from the place of no. I think
Yes.
that's something we can all take away as an actionable item. So appreciate your sharing your wisdom with us today. And it has been truly a pleasure to talk with you. I think you shared your wisdom, which is a strong reflection of your leadership, and would love to share with listeners where they can find you and stay connected to what you're building at Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. So please feel welcome to reach out. I love connecting with people. And so please, you know, give me a shout on LinkedIn. I would love to continue the conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And
Thank you,
thank you to
Teri.
everyone listening today to Campus Outcomes. Great stories are happening all across higher ed, and we're here to shine a light. Until next time.